Good morning, everyone. It's Ben Buckner and Dan Bossy with Ag Resource Company. Tuesday, August 26th. We've got markets that are mixed. I think make fundamental sense. Grain markets doing very little. Crop conditions stubbornly high. We're seeing yields from parts of Russia too that are improving pretty quick. So the Black Sea wheat crop estimates are getting larger. They're not getting smaller. So that I think that is the beginning and end of grain markets. Soybean markets trying to crawl back a bit of yesterday's decline. And I think, Dan, what we've seen the last few sessions, and this week especially, is soybean market is more sensitive to Chinese demand or the lack thereof, I think, than anything else over crop ratings over end of August, early September weather. So it does seem like it comes down exclusively to China, how the soybean market is going to make its next move in the next 30 days. And we've got sort of reports indicating there may be some meetings between some high-level officials from China in Washington this week. But does it mean enough? Will we get that window open for Chinese soybean demand? That is the big question on the market. So I will pass it to you, break down what you are seeing this morning.
Yeah, Ben. So what we have this morning is the soybean market recovered, and you could see it in overnight trade when around 9:15 or 9:30 Central Time last night, the Wall Street Journal ran a story about Lee moving from Canada. He's one of the trade ministers and heading to Washington, D.C. Now, the Wall Street Journal indicated he would be meeting with USTR Ambassador Greer. That has been denied now by both Bloomberg and Reuters. It looks like he's been on a business trip. Whether or not he meets with some U.S. government officials has yet to be seen, but the U.S. is saying that they did not request him to come here. So a little mystified this morning about what this all means and what's ahead here. And the market's seeing it, and as you said, very sensitive to Chinese demand. But again, just unknowing what's to come. I would imagine that if he is coming, that indeed he will be looking to set up some kind of meeting between Trump and Xi. I believe that in the background that is what this is all about, whether that meeting is at the APEC meeting in October 31st or November 1st, or maybe later or sooner has yet to be decided. So we'll watch this carefully. I think the market is looking at it from the standpoint of, as you look at the United States, we've got 3 key months here of soybean demand to fill. This would be October, November, December. Looking backwards, we maybe do 1 million metric tons in September, 6 million tons in October, November, and 4 in December. So adding those 3 months together, it's a big deal. I mean, we're looking at, a sizable amount of U.S. soybeans, let's call it somewhere in the range of, 16 million metric tons. And then other months are virtually unimportant. So this is why the market's focusing. Now, we at Ag Resource believe that China's bought 85% of its needs in October from Brazil, maybe something like 15 or 20% for November. That leaves us open on the remainder of November and December. So those are the 2 key discussion points here. September's already lost. So in our mind, we've already lost, let's say, somewhere around 7 or 8 million tons of Chinese soybean demand, which USDA has yet to reflect in their balance sheets in a big way. U.S. crop condition ratings were very good yesterday. U.S. corn ratings are now the best since 2016, 71% good to excellent. You can see their improvement over last year. We would imagine that the soil moisture levels, which we'll talk about in a minute, and the cool temperatures here will continue to preserve the corn yield. We at Ag Resource have estimated the U.S. corn yield at 187.1 bushels an acre relative to the weather of August and where we see the crop for the NASS report coming up in September. So again, down slightly from September, not big, but again, something that we'll start to talk about more aggressively in the market as private estimates start to come forward after the Labor Day holiday. One thing we can look at in soybeans is ratings improve. This is unusual in a seasonal time frame when soybeans start to drop leaves. 4% of the crop is dropping leaves, and when that happens, it tends to have a more ugly appearance and ratings go down from a seasonal perspective. Remember that crop condition ratings are beauty contests, so no one's really getting in the field and counting pods or looking at ears. But as we look at soybean ratings, a very good rating. We go back at Ag Resource and look at the pod counts from Pro Farmer, which have a historically good background for forecasting yields in September. And we've raised our soybean yield to 54.5 bushels an acre accordingly. So Again, we need 1 or 2 more rains across the soybean areas, but this is a very special crop that looks like it's producing a record yield, much like corn. When we look at that soil moisture conditions, I'm just pulling up the map from this morning so everybody can have a sense of what's been going on and why condition ratings held so well. You have some dryness across Michigan, northern Iowa, northern Ohio, and then we have to go westward to Nebraska and Kansas. Now, Nebraska, Kansas got some rain yesterday. Those areas are well irrigated. So if you look at soil moisture conditions in the top 16 inches, everybody else is relatively well. And with this cool temperatures, crops will be able to do pretty doggone good. So that's why I say we need 1 or 2 more rains to make the bean crop. Corn's kind of cruising to the end, to the finish line here. But again, this is why the crop condition ratings have held so well during the month of August. It was those big rains in later July that really sustained production and yield totals here in the month of August. When we look at the 7-day forecast from NOAA, the QPF as we call it, notice all of the rain that is forecast on the plains, the Gulf states, and even the Delta. So we will see some moisture, well deserved in those areas. Harvest is underway, so there will be some delays. But again, this rain looks like in the 11 to 15 or 10 to 15 day period that it will be shifting northward. Where the rain falls will be very key. We'll watch the short-term forecast models, the NAM high res, to really pinpoint where that rain is falling. But as a jet stream moves northward, we should see those ridge riding storms move back into the Midwest. And as I stated earlier, we only need 1 or 2 of them to really give us the Midwest another drink. And we're kind of to the finish line in terms of U.S. crop production. The temperatures will be relatively cool. We have 40s and upper 30s across some of the Midwest here this morning. The crops will like that. Temperatures are looking at the 60s and 70s. So whatever soil moisture is in the ground will be preserved. Any heat will be located across Canada. We are seeing the Canadians start their grain harvest, both on canola. We'll look also at wheat and spring wheat and other crops. And so that's moving along. And that dry, hot weather, warm weather across Canada, Western Canada, will be very favorable. So Ben, as I think about where we're heading on all these markets, still difficult for me to get a bull market or chase a rally here. I don't think the Chinese are angling to be a big buyer nearby. With that in mind, with these growing soybean yields and likely large corn yields, I still think the market is going to soften as we get beyond the Labor Day holiday. And in particular, we've got a large open interest position in September corn, 128,000 contracts, probably 100,000 of that needs to be liquidated by first notice day on Friday. Back to you, Ben.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's, again, very well summarized. Thinking big picture, these are big crops. We'll debate how big is big for a little bit yet, but think about the pods that were found on Pro Farmers Tour. There's a lot of other tours going on and will be going on for the next couple of weeks, and they're finding really, really big yield potential in places like Iowa and Western Illinois. So we're not willing to adjust our corn yield down that much. I think soybeans could be the surprise to the upside. And the reason, too, in the background, why we're so hyper focused on China and China's demand for soybeans, specifically October and November, is even the normal course of events. Unless there is crippling drought in northern Brazil in October, early November, they're going to be harvesting soybeans in December, January. So that window is pretty locked in no matter what. And you can kind of start to count down the time between now and when Brazil comes back to the global market in full. And so it's not a terribly wide window that's open anyway. So we do urge people to pay very, very close attention to what China is doing. Are they buying soybeans or are they not? Might be the bigger risk. So that's still the big picture to us. China weather for another couple of weeks. We're making moves in the market, so I think get all those moves. Dollar gets you in for 30 days, but otherwise, as usual, all the best in the markets today. We'll be back tomorrow with more information. Thanks for watching. Bye.